the GabeCube, or what I'm liking to call it, the BBB, big black box, maybe the LBB, little black box, because this thing is seriously small. But leave it to Valve on just a random Wednesday to just be like, hey, we're just gonna announce 3 really massive products. You guys will figure it out. You know, they just announced a Steam controller, a new Steam machine that got brought back from the dead. There's also the Steam Frame, which is a VR device. And what's funny though is at the beginning of this, they teased a Steam Deck update.
We're excited to talk about the future of Steam Deck, but not today, because this isn't a video about the future of Steam Deck.
Bruh, that like, hey, they're gonna be working on the Steam Deck, and I have some theories, especially with the information that we now know about the Steam VR headset. The Steam Deck is probably gonna have some extremely impressive changes going on later in the future. Right now, I guess they're not ready to talk about it at the moment. We still got a lot to go over today of this little cube. Please, Steam, reach out to me too, because I want to be a part of this. And if you actually break it down, the form factor of this, it's only 6 by 6 by 6. What the hell? Dude, that's so small. And especially we see the hardware that is packed inside of this thing. That is also very, very impressive. The Mac Mini, 5 inches wide, 5 inches deep, and 2 inches tall. Obviously even smaller than this device from Valve, but the Mac Mini has a much lower power budget, so it kind of makes sense that it could be this size. Things like PlayStation 5 is much larger than this, and honestly don't have that much faster of hardware, and in some ways are actually slower than this device from Valve. But what is this thing? Because yes, this does look a lot like a console, and generally speaking, it is pretty similar to a console, because if you have experienced or even heard about anything, and yes, I'm recording this at 2:42 a.m. If you know anything about SteamOS on the Steam Deck, this is a very polished operating system. Like I can just kind of scroll through my operating system like this. So here's my games and everything. And this is running on Linux right now. And if you really want to, then you can go through and then you can switch over to desktop mode. As you can see, there's a lot of things. It's still a desktop, you know, so like a bunch of bullshit happens, but Valve has done a ton of work with SteamOS to make it compatible with all kinds of games out there. Most other operating systems, like even with Apple and their Mac devices, are struggling to get like games running on a device like that. But Steam just went out there and is like, hey, we're gonna run it on Linux and we're gonna make a compatibility layer so that Windows games can just run on Linux for the most part. So we're now at a point with the Steam Deck where it's sold millions of units, the operating system is in a state, and now Steam can make a move and make basically your own console. It can act like a console. You just boot in, play your games. It seems like the new Steam controller, it has a built-in receiver with inside of it, kind of like an Xbox or a PlayStation, that you get a direct connection to the console with your controller. You'll probably be able to turn on the Steam machine just by using the controller, which is very, very console-like. It's a smooth experience. You get updates for the device throughout the menus and stuff. Like it just works really smoothly. But at the same time, you still have all the power of a PC. And Valve themselves went out there and like
Powerful PC gaming in an open ecosystem, giving you more ways to enjoy the games you love and discover new ones.
In an open ecosystem.
Valve wants you to be able to install your own software on this device and make it your own. Most consoles want to trap you in their ecosystem as much as possible so that you are going to spend money on their stores or buy their products or get their subscription. Valve just treats customers pretty well. We like you, and that's probably why most product launches in tech or game launches even too don't go that positively. But look at the dislike and like ratio here on Steam's announcement. Like, that's sick. You know, they're offering something that no other platform is. And it's something similar, I think, to what Xbox claims that they want to do, where they would kind of combine Xbox with Windows, then provide Xbox games and publishing. Even Xbox is starting to partner with other companies to try to make their devices like the ROG Xbox Ally. Now we'll talk about how Xbox has responded to this a little bit later, because it is a odd response to say the least. I saw on like Twitter here is like, can someone explain this to me? Like, I'm 5 years old. Is this weaker or is this stronger than a PlayStation 5 and an Xbox Series X? So basically you see these spec sheets, and we'll go out to the actual Valve website. Most people don't really know what they're talking about. I answer this guy's question real quick. The Steam machine in CPU performance, it seems like it will be faster than the consoles that are out right now, but in terms of the graphics performance, it's probably going to be slower in more ways than you might think. Honestly, it has a major problem that is going to severely limit the Steam machine. Yeah, let's look at the specs that are provided on Valve's website. Here's some of the things. I mean, basically, it is meant to be a device that you would put in your living room and play on your TV. And there's also some situations where people would have this on their desk because this is a PC that runs Linux. You could use this as your main computer. I'll let you know, like, I don't know how good this would be to be your main device. As we go into this, I want to let you guys know that the Steam Deck, even when it came out, it's not that powerful. And especially in 2025, it's not that powerful either. And it's because they want to get this to mass market, produce a lot of them, and also try to keep the cost pretty low. So it doesn't have to be the latest things that are out there. Now, the Steam machine, its CPU is a lot newer. And honestly, its CPU is pretty damn good, even in today's standards. To break this down, the CPU in here is a Zen 4 6-core 12-thread processor. So your CPU, obviously the main processing power on your system. Now, what I need to point out about this CPU is it is a 30-watt TDP. So that's not a super high power processor, especially in terms of like desktop processors. I mean, even low-end ones that don't draw that much power are like about 65 watts. And this is only 30 watts, which is a pretty big sign that this is a mobile processor. So one of the ones that you'd be in like your laptops and everything. This seems to be almost the exact same specs that line up the Ryzen 5 7640U. I know the names are annoying, but this is a AMD processor that came out in 2022. This is Zen 4. It's a pretty new architecture. And honestly, the difference is like Zen 5 is out now, but the difference between Zen 4 and Zen 5 is not really that big. And it has a 15 to 30 watt TDP. So on Valve's website, they list this as being semi-custom. Basically, I think this is just a Ryzen 7640U, but they took out the integrated GPU because they have another GPU that's in it. And if you were to go to like desktop processors, I'm going to hide my camera here. This is some data from Hardware Unboxed. This is pretty similar to a Ryzen 7600 on PC specs wise, but the 7600 draws 65 watts. The mobile version here is most likely going to be slower. If you do look up specifically this processor, then the ads are annoying on the site, but I just went on Passmark. This is just a website that kind of lists a bunch of, overall benchmarks for CPUs. Single threaded performance, so this is how each individual core performs. And the 7640U, honestly, it doesn't stack up that bad in terms of the single core performance and a lot of these different chips. Instance, the PS5 and Xbox have like a Ryzen 3600 in them, basically. So this is not bad because that is not even on this chart at all. And we go into the overall CPU performance. And what we're gonna see is this processor can compare to like 8-core processors that are just a little bit older. And I think the CPU that's on the Steam machine is probably one of the strongest parts of it. It only has 6 cores, but I think for most situations, 6 cores will be plenty. Like Hardware Unboxed has done benchmarking on this. You don't necessarily need more than 6 cores on your processors. Now, something that I kind of disagree with and I'm kind of disappointed in with the Steam machine is actually its graphics capabilities. Now, this is a semi-custom AMD RDNA 3 GPU, and just so you know, the CPU and the GPU are not one. It's similar to like how a laptop works, how you have a discrete graphics card inside of your laptop, but they're both soldered, so you can't replace the graphics card if you want to. Now, a cool thing about this is you can replace the storage on it. I did see that in some videos, but yeah, this GPU is an RDNA 3 28 compute unit chip. And you see like the consoles, so like the PlayStation 5, for example, this is an RDNA 2 chip. RDNA 2 as an architecture from AMD. This came out in 2020. Is generally speaking running a 36 compute unit chip. And to be honest, the differences between RDNA 2 and RDNA 3 that came out in 2022 wasn't that big. Maybe this might get close to the performance of a PlayStation 5, but it has less compute units. It only has 28. We were to check one of the lower end processors from the Radeon 7000 series is the RX 7600, and this GPU from the same architecture from AMD has 32 compute units. Now, the desktop version of this card is 165 watts. And the more power you feed into things, generally speaking, there's an efficiency curve, but, generally speaking, you get more performance. But the one that's in the Steam machine is only about 110 watts. It isn't going to match the performance of that desktop RX 7600. And realistically, if we were to break this down, this is similar to an RX 7600 M processor. In fact, this might be this exact same processor. It has 28 compute units. The TDP is 90 watts. So this seems like it's an overclocked 7600M, so a 7600 mobile processor. This is general data, it's not completely accurate, but this stacks up with basically like pretty low-end graphics cards right now. Like for instance, the RX 6600, depending how accurate this is, was a pretty low-end GPU that was going for about $180 to $200 for quite a while. It seems like it'd be slower than an RTX 3060, and I have this card, for example, the RTX 5050. The RTX 5050 struggles quite a bit in games, and it seems like even though Steam is probably going to be getting more performance out of this 7600M, probably is going to struggle to keep up with like a desktop RTX 5050. And then here is this 7600M graphics card, the mobile one. Kind of. It's the XT version. Honestly, it's okay 1080p graphics card. Does worry me because, I mean, you know, Random Gaming HD was testing at 1080p because that seems like what it's actually capable of. However, Steam did advertise this as a 4K 60 capable console,
enabling 4K gaming at 60 frames per second with FSR.
They said that they want you to use FSR upscaling. Granted, Linus did show it in his video running Cyberpunk at 4K, but it was using a little upscaling in his own words.
If you're willing to turn down the details and use a little bit of FSR upscaling.
However, this upscaling was FSR performance mode, which means it's going from 1080p all the way up to 4K in order to achieve this, which is quite a lot. The thing that actually disappoints me about this chip is the memory that it has available to it. Now, I just made a video recently all about how 8 gigabytes of video memory, or as Asmongold likes to call it,
16 gigabytes of RAM. That's fine with virtual RAM as well, 8 gigabytes of virtual RAM. What games will I test on it? Games to test. Okay, so, no.
8 gigabytes in 2025 has tons of problems, especially because they are targeted to play at a TV, and a lot of people have 4K TVs. The higher resolution you go, the more problems you typically have with memory. If it's going to be able to really achieve what they're wanting it to achieve, because it's kind of under spec right now, you can't replace it or upgrade it. You might be able to upgrade the system memory though.
While we couldn't go that deep today, Valve also confirmed that the memory uses standard SODIMM slots.
But overall, it seems like this device is gonna be kind of straddled to like lower end gaming. Like it isn't super powerful, but neither are the consoles. This isn't that much slower than the consoles that are out there right now. Now, what I do find funny is that this isn't like the fastest device for running at 4K on a TV. That's a lot of pixels to push, but you could use this to stream directly to your Steam Deck. And Valve themselves claim it's 6 times faster than the hardware that's in the Steam Deck. And honestly, it doesn't take much to get that much faster. I believe them, to be honest. Overall, it seems like this device has quite a bit of ports on it. However, I just think it's kind of odd that the HDMI that is available on the Steam machine is only 2.0. when 2.1 is available, and 2.1 has been pretty standard since like 2020. And the main advantage of HDMI 2.1 is it gives you variable refresh rate. Now this might be like a modified version of HDMI 2.0 or something, because I don't think it normally supports 4K 120. Usually it doesn't support variable refresh rate, but it does say that AMD FreeSync is available, which is a variable refresh rate technology. I don't know if that will apply to everything. Linus did end up confirming this.
It is worth noting that HDMI 2.0 port, they have tested it at HDMI 2.1 speeds, but there are a couple of features that are not implemented, so they can't call it HDMI 2.1.
Now, I'm not 100% sure what features of HDMI 2.1 it is lacking though. DisplayPort 1.4 can do all this stuff anyways though, so you could just use this port, especially if you're on this as like your main PC and this is plugged into a monitor. Now, something about this setup though with the processors is the CPU and the GPU are completely separate. And this is a bigger deal than a lot of you guys even realize. AMD already makes big APUs, which is where the CPU and the GPU are combined into like one system on a chip. And I know, stupid name and everything. I'm glad that Valve didn't say AI in their presentation at all. At least we can escape from something. AI Max 385 is a very capable SoC that they didn't choose to use on the Steam machine. 8 CPU cores, 32 compute units instead of 28 compute units. And this is all done on just one chip instead of separating them out and making a more complex cooling solution. However, I will say that this chip seems to max out at about 120 watts, which would be a little bit lower than about the 150 watts that I'm estimating is going into the Steam machine. So Steam didn't choose to go with like a big APU. Now this could be because of cost, like maybe it's cheaper to buy them separately and just kind of link them up in post. And maybe it's a supply issue, like maybe not that many of these APUs are made and they can't get this in this many devices. However, I think this is a huge deal. This is starting to compete with Windows. You can install this SteamOS Linux operating system on different devices out there, but the only ones that are officially supported is the Steam Deck, the Lenovo Legion Go S, ROG Ally X, and other AMD-powered handhelds. And it's only the ones that have the CPU and the GPU combined onto one chip overall. Because now they're separate, and then this black box is running SteamOS. That means that we're having a separation of these things. And yes, up to this point, you can just download SteamOS and do all that stuff. And it seems like some people, like the Toasty Bros, were able to get a normal computer with a separate graphics card and a separate CPU running SteamOS, and they got it working, but they had some problems. Like it didn't really work on their GPU very fluidly. Like they had to swap out some things until it ended up booting with whatever GPU that ended up in it. It's been finicky, but it seems like Valve might be making progress of supporting different CPUs and GPUs, which means that SteamOS by the day is going to become a more and more viable ecosystem. We have a competitor possibly to Windows that is getting stronger and stronger by the freaking day. We have seen another operating system that behaves like SteamOS called Bazite that has much broader hardware support right now. Now, I think this does beg the question, isn't this what Microsoft wants to do with Xbox and bring it on to Windows and everything? Because Windows, yes, they did recently with the ROG Ally X make a skin for Windows that you can make it like a gaming system, and it's kind of cool actually. I kind of like it. Phil Spencer, the CEO of Xbox, did just tweet out after the announcement of the Steam machine, gaming moves forward when players and developers have more ways to play and create, especially across open platforms. Obviously, Valve completely champions open platform. Expanding access across PC, console, and handheld devices reflects a future built on choice, core values that have guided Xbox's vision from the start. Choice, as they up the prices of Game Pass. Okay, sure. As one of the largest publishers on Steam, we welcome new options for players to access games anywhere. Congrats on today's announcement. Is this an Xbox too? Phil Spencer, is there an Xbox in the room with us right now? Is this an Xbox? Is this an Xbox? Yeah, I just don't really get it. And Xbox day by day just looks like it is more and more freaking cooked. Now, we've heard some rumors on what the price of this Steam GameCube is going to be.
In terms of pricing, they didn't indicate exact pricing on this device yet, but they did say that they're not targeting like console pricing. They're just targeting, I guess, small form factor PCs. And it's just like supposed to be competitive with that kind of hardware. So like imagine if I had to throw a number out there, I would have guessed like $700-800.
It's a little bit concerning because obviously the Steam Deck, one of the big draws of this device is because it's very, very cheap. It's affordable mobile PC gaming. And that's because, you know, they get you in the Steam ecosystem and you buy games on Steam and you invest and reinvest into that library because the ecosystem is so good. And it kind of recoups some of the cost of the console itself. But with the Steam machine, I'm not sure if they're going to try to price this as aggressively as the Steam Deck is.
They said that while they expect it to be very competitively priced with a PC, that it will be priced like a PC, rather than like a console with games subsidizing the upfront hardware purchase. They wouldn't say why, but if I had to guess, I'd say it's partially to avoid stepping on the margin opportunities of their potential partners for Steam games and Steam software, but also because they recognize that the Steam machine is a full-fledged PC, capable of being used as a full-fledged PC.
And I've seen estimates out here which blow my mind. It doesn't make any sense.
I'm thinking somewhere around like 1,100 for the lower end and like 1,500 for the higher end. You guys are saying 700. I don't think it's going to be that cheap, guys.
Especially because he probably doesn't know that this is a pretty affordable device. Like it doesn't have super high-end specs in it or anything like that. It's like if it were to drop for $1,100, I'm not going to lie, as much as I like Valve and everything, that product would be dead on arrival. Nobody would be buying that because you could build a much better PC for a much cheaper price. So honestly, if I were to say what price point would this work and people go out and buy them, price competitive, maybe a little bit above a PlayStation 5 and an Xbox, because you do have, you know, open platform compatibility and everything. It's also very small and compact. $700 would be at the point where like I think people would still buy it, but it would be more niche. But if it was more in the range of like $500 to $600, and you can upgrade the storage in it if you want, so you can get that base 512 gigabyte model that's out there. If it was like $500 to $600, I think that'd be a really good option, because you would have like a good computer that hopefully they could recoup some of that cost on. They'd be probably not profiting that much on it. But Hardware Canucks is saying they want it to be less than $400. And in my opinion, that would be amazing, but I don't think that's going to happen. What my hope is that this can be affordable. $800, $900, $1,000, then yeah, that's going to cost a little bit too much. And that'd be the disappointing part, because we don't really know how much they're going to want to charge for it. Also, this does not come with a controller like how the consoles do. Let me know what you guys think about this. Do you think they're going to charge a lot for it? I don't think they can. To be honest, I think $600 would be a pretty nice sweet spot. Are you going to buy one? When pre-orders available, I'm going to try to get one. We'll see how it goes. I'm excited for it. I mean, this is a hardware release that is going to progress the market a lot, and it's a much bigger stepping stone. Multiple operating systems being big on the PC platform, other than just like Mac OS, you know? Who the f is gaming on Mac? I'm going to see you guys in the next video. You have a good one, and peace.